Okay, so here we go. Take one. So I'm on the phone with Max Seisler, and this is kind of a practice. And I'm interviewing him about home. And one of the reasons why I thought it would be interesting is that we grew up together in New Orleans. And one of the things that I always noticed about New Orleans is that people who grow up in New Orleans, who are from there, generally speaking, fall into one of two camps. One is that they're really symbiotically connected to the city, and that is where their heart lives, and they may leave, but they always come back, and that's really, it's home. It's like home in this really deep way. And the other people that are from there can't wait to get the fuck out of New Orleans. And they don't belong there. You know, they don't feel like they belong there, even if they live there, that the city they find almost toxic. And so I thought it would be interesting to talk to you about your relationship with the idea of home, and specifically because New Orleans seems to have this tie that other people who are from other places don't seem to relate to in the same way. And also you lived through Katrina and came back, you know, decided to stay there even post-Katrina, and that had a huge impact from a lot of people that I've talked to. At least it seemed to have a really huge impact on the spirit of the city, maybe the spirit is not right. Maybe you can come up with a better word for that. The texture or the something of the city. Something more than just the facade. You know, just the structure of it was pretty deeply affected. So
I think we should stick for the time being around the first part of your idea. I think there's a whole lot of stuff there that could be talked about. First of all, I would say you sort of made it sound like the hate-love thing about New Orleans is very black and white, and I think it can be for some people. For me, I definitely have feelings that would come out of both of those sides. Yes, New Orleans is my home, and yes, I feel really tied to it, and we can talk about all those reasons as to why. And on the other side, I have also had a lot of time where I have felt like I don't fit in here. I am not your average New Orleanian by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, that might be an interesting.
I'm not a beer drinking Saint fan. I don't go out and get drunk all the time. I don't go to all the festivals. And I have had, some big issues with the politics and, living in the South and the conservative points of view that go along with that. But there are, for me, a lot of wonderful things about New Orleans that don't exist anywhere else, at least I think in the United States.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a very cultural and historically rich city, and because we've been so poor for so long, we've retained a lot of that, which in the rest of the United States has just been torn down because of capitalism. Which is another subject which I'll get to later, but that it's starting to happen here too because of Katrina and everyone. Now this is the place that everyone wants to live, and there's all these developers developers coming here and tearing things down and building.
So would you call that would you call that?
As far as like the heart of New Orleans, it's like it's really deep and it's on many levels, and there's all kinds of history and ethnic groups and things to learn through all of those people. And it's a very, very creative city. It is a very, as far as being able to be creative and be free, it's a very free place to live spiritually and physically. And I mean, I really think that you can probably be yourself here more than you can be yourself in other places in this country. And I love our old buildings. You know, the whole sort of geography of the city, I really like. I mean, there's definitely some things about it that it doesn't have, you know, like it doesn't have beaches or mountains or, you know, a lot of sort of outdoor activities. But I mean, you can do some of that kind of stuff if you want to go to the swamp, or there's some national parks and stuff. But that stuff doesn't seem so easily accessible here. And it's hot, but I happen to really like hot weather.
Well, can you go back and talk?
I love that there's just so much love here, and people are so friendly. And that's part of the culture.
Can you go back and talk a little bit about when you say you can really be yourself here? Because well,
there's so much diversity here. I mean, people, since Katrina, people have flooded the city because of that reason. Because people feel like they can be themselves here and let go. I don't know. I just think there's socially. I mean, I know that in certain arenas, like the one partially in which we grew up, which revolved around the school we went to, it was a very closed-minded community. But New Orleans is much more than that, and that closed-minded community is really, in my mind, a small part of the city, and it's easy to avoid. I mean, they're there, but it's easy to not participate in that. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, and I really do think since Katrina, there's been way more emphasis on the other stuff, the stuff that I like. And that's why people have come here. People have come here to indulge in that, let their hair down, and, you know, feel like they can walk down the street and be themselves.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, just interesting to me, because that was not my experience at all growing up there.
Well, of course, because all you were surrounded by was the small community of that school we went to.
Well, not necessarily.
You know, that's not the whole city.
Right.
I mean, understandable. I mean, I know when I was a kid, I hated all of that. And so I made a huge effort to see what else was out there.
Right.
You know, my parents didn't know. I mean, they were raised in a racially divided New Orleans, so they really had no idea what was out there. You know, they didn't listen to jazz. They certainly didn't know what a Mardi Gras Indian was. They didn't know what Black Mardi Gras was, you know. They were scared to go downtown. So it's like I didn't get that from my parents or my family. I had to go, you know, I kind of just seeked out interesting people that were quite different than the people we grew up with. And I learned stuff from them. And then, you know, when I started venturing out a little bit on my own when I was in high school. And when I was older and could have more access to things, you know, I started doing a lot more exploring. And I met other friends that were interested in exploring also different aspects of New Orleans besides the white uptown closed-mindedness that we grew up with. But, you know, I also grew up in a Reformed Jewish household that was really annexed from all that, you know, Mardi Gras, old world Mardi Gras community and money. I mean, the Jews were not part of that. And And so, I grew up with my parents saying, we're not invited into this, and so just avoid it. It's not good. You don't need to go there. There's other things.
Right.
So, and I think it probably would have been a lot harder growing up in a household that was Catholic, or one that was really involved with that kind of, the Mardi Gras families. I know from friends, from you and from other people who have grown up in that community, how oppressive it was. I've had friends that were supposed to be debutantes and queens of carnival, and they turned it down, because
Right.
they didn't want to live that life.
Right. And that was...
And, some people probably did have to move away because they couldn't say no, and the only way they could deal with it was to move away.
Right.
But there have been some interesting people here who have said no to that and who have stayed. I know some artists, who are probably really radical compared to their families. They were probably the rebellious ones from their families, who veered off and became artists and decided to go down a different path in life. And, some that are interesting that have a foot in both worlds.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because my experience, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures. So there was that sort of blue blood debutante thing going on that we were immersed in that in our school community. But there was also the Teep community and the Jewish community, and I felt like, for me, there were always these factors that kept me excluded from all of the communities. Whether it was my color or my religion or my privilege or my parents' political views and my political views. It was interesting that I had the opposite experience, was that I saw all these communities there, and they all seemed very closed to me, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. I think for me, this would be a purely survival mechanism that I had to, at some point, just say, fuck you, I don't want to be part of a community that doesn't accept me.
Right.
And so, I went out and tried to find other things to fill my life with.
So what was can you talk about feeling that sense of, because I know both you and I definitely felt a little bit like outriders growing up in the high school. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, I'm putting my veggies in the oven. Oh shit, and I moved away from the recorder. Finding that community for the first time. Is it something that...
It was not easy, and it was really painful, and I didn't have any support. There was no one I could go to say, help me.
So how did you do that? I would love to hear that more about you finding your way.
I did it because I had to. I never felt like I fit in. Never. When I started Newman School in kindergarten, they made me wear a dress. I was so depressed about it. And gender-wise, I never ever fit in anywhere. I didn't fit with my family. I didn't fit with the community I was exposed to. My mom grew up with a community of Jewish friends that she had her whole life, and she would send me to go play with their kids, and I did that. One of them was, I'm not going to mention names of it, who one of them was somebody we ended up going to high school with, and we were both friends with. And I never fit in with those kids. And actually, one of them has turned out to be an actor in the creative field, but she moved away a long time ago, so we have lost contact.
So,
I don't know. I mean, I kind of, at least when I went to Newman, the kids all accepted me and embraced me because they had all known me. You know, some of them we went to nursery school together. I never really had social issues at Newman, but it was also still elementary school.
right.
But the minute I started, I mean, first of all, and then in between, I went to McDonough 15 for half a year, and so that gave me exposure to being in a classroom with all black kids. You know, there was just me and one other Jewish girl. We were the only two white kids in the class. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting coming out of Newman and having that experience. I mean, first of all, I was total in shock because public schools in New Orleans are dismal compared to what I was used to in a private school. But,
yes.
You know, it really taught me some really good lessons, I think, about, you know, what was out there in the world, you know, and also how your perspective can be different at a different school, and people can see you differently. And so, you know, I wasn't there long enough to make friends, but, and then when they started me at Country Day, the only kid that was nice to me was Kristen. And all the rest of the kids, like, were, you know, I never felt welcome there.
Right.
And I was in 5th grade. And, you know, Kristen and I fell in and became friends, but we were really different. I mean, she was really more like one of the lifetime Country Day students, but I didn't know that at the time, and because of her disability, it made her be different, but she really wasn't. I don't think she really felt different inside except for her disability.
Right.
And that didn't really come out until, you know, 8th and 9th grade when she started pushing me away. I mean, please, I've got to talk about this, but I don't know how else to talk about this because, you know, you kind of come into that picture at the time, that group of girls that I started being friends with, you know, and I guess 7th, 8th grade, and, you know, I think that's when I met you, and through high school, and how they started being incredibly mean to me.
Yeah.
And so I had to just stop being friends with them because it felt, like, too abusive to me. But I think it wasn't until maybe 10th grade when I decided to completely stop being friends with them because, you know, I think I tried a little bit in 11th grade, but it was so mean and abusive to me. And, you know, some of them were more abusive than others. I mean, you were never mean to me, and Missy Barnes was never mean to me, but, you know, there was some others.
Yes, I know them. I know exactly who you're talking about.
And so, you know, and then Kristen also started being really weird to me in 9th grade, which I couldn't really understand, maybe started in 8th grade, because I guess, you know, I was just really different, and she wanted to hang out with the more popular crowd, the kids she had always known since kindergarten, I suppose, and she started being mean to me. It was shocking.
Wow, that is
shocking.
shocking.
Of us being so close, of her starting to be mean to me, and then she died soon after that, which was really disturbing to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, me not getting any support whatsoever from Country Day, or, you know, the teachers, the school, the students, they didn't even recognize at all. It's like they were totally blind to the fact that how close Kristen and I had been.
Yeah.
The saving grace there was that her parents and my parents knew, and they were wonderful. And you know, her sister. But anyway,
Sorry, Ethan is now joining us in the kitchen.
in ninth grade, when we started going to, what was that stupid club we went to?
Hang on one second.
Valencia.
Hey, yeah, hang on. Can you hang on? Can you, Max?
Meeting kids from other schools.
Max, can you hang on one second? Hang on one second.
Sure. That really helped me a lot because I re-met some people there that I had known transferring to other schools. And some kids that I had, that I had met when I was really little, whose my parents were friends with their parents, but these kids went to different schools. But when I started going to Valencia, I started seeing them again, as teenagers. And so I started hanging out with them. Mm-hmm. And that's when I met all kinds of people that really became my friends and who really I'm still friends with. And most of them went to Catholic schools.
So you met the folks.
I had this boyfriend for a while, Michael, and through ninth grade, and
Max?
There was kind of this group of boys he was friends with that became my friends, and some of them I still know.
Max,
and
can you hear?
Then I met some girls that went to a different Catholic